Michelle, she should change her name to Misery Obama. That's really what I think of when Misery Obama never has a positive word to say. Never. Not about children, not about family, certainly not about her husband. By the way, before we leave this topic, here's her latest soundbite that made the rounds. This happened on June 18th, but I was off. Here it is, SOT 39.
It started with a throwaway comment, one of those "did she really say that" moments that echoed louder than a State of the Union address. Michelle Obama, on a June 18th podcast, casually dropped a line that set social media ablaze. She was glad she didn't have a son because he might have turned out like Barack.
You should have threw a boy in the mix.
I would. I'm so glad I didn't have a boy.
Yeah.
Because he would have been a Barack Obama.
It's like baby Barack. It would have been amazing.
Ooh, no, I would have felt for him.
She just borrowed our boys.
Yes, I got plenty.
Cue the record scratch. This wasn't just a quip, it was a verbal landmine, and Megyn Kelly came running with a match. While most of the media politely ignored the subtext, Megyn cracked it open like a piñata, stuffed with marital resentment. She can't stand him, Megyn quipped, and suddenly America was listening. Because here's the thing, that one sentence wasn't just a slip, it was a signal. A signal that the shiny facade of the Obama marriage, the brand, the books, the Netflix deal, might be more gloss than glue. And for a woman who built her image on unity, love, and resilience, it sounded less like empowerment and more like exasperation. Megyn didn't treat it like gossip, she treated it like evidence. And with that, she kicked off what would become a full-scale demolition of Michelle's carefully protected public persona. The myth of the flawless First Lady, that just took its first real hit.
Wow.
Did you catch that? She's glad she didn't have a boy because he would have been a Barack Obama. And that's a hard pass for her. This woman can't stand him. She can't.
Wait a minute. Now
Megyn didn't tiptoe into this. She came in swinging, and her aim was precise. Forget the soft focus glamour shots and choreographed dance routines with Ellen. Kelly went straight for the crown jewel of Michelle's legacy, the myth of merit. Different bars for different people, Michelle once said, a not-so-subtle nod to racial inequities. But Megyn flipped the script. Sure, Barack just happened to land at Harvard with 2 minutes of public service and a skyrocket to the presidency, she scoffed.
So listen to what Michelle Obama said in response to this opinion today. Of course, students on my campus and countless others across the country were and continue to be granted special consideration for admissions. Some have parents who graduated from the same school. Others have families who can afford coaches to help them run faster and hit a ball harder. Others go to high schools with lavish resources for tutors and extensive standardized test prep. So often we just accept that money, power, and privilege are perfectly justifiable forms of affirmative action, while kids growing up like I did are expected to compete when the ground is anything but level. You know what, Michelle? Same. And I'm white. I didn't have any of those advantages.
The message was clear. The Obamas didn't climb a ladder. They were helicoptered to the top. While media outlets rushed to anoint Michelle as America's motivational mother figure, Kelly was busy dissecting the narrative with surgical precision. This wasn't a vendetta, it was an autopsy. Michelle's rise, according to Megyn, had less to do with revolutionary ideas and more to do with curated aesthetics and political packaging. The lettuce-eating, cardigan-wearing, side-eye-giving icon had become a brand, a polished, corporate-safe version of activism that never got its hands dirty. And for Megyn, that brand had overstayed its welcome. It wasn't about tearing down a woman, it was about refusing to worship a public image that had been laminated, inflated, and stamped untouchable by the very media that claimed to be objective.
Here's the first one about how difficult it is for Black women like Michelle to articulate their pain.
We grew up with women who weren't voicing the pain and the burden. They made it look easy. And when you make stuff look easy, people assume that you must like this.
Yeah.
It's okay with you, right?
Right.
You know, we don't articulate as Black women our pain because it's almost like nobody ever gave us permission.
Michelle Obama didn't need a campaign. She had a vibe. With a furrowed brow, a tilted head, and a cardigan in every hue, she managed to turn motivational catchphrases into a cultural movement. But Megyn wasn't buying the smoke and mirrors. She's not a first lady, Kelly mocked. She's a lifestyle influencer with secret service. And suddenly, all the signature Michelle moments, the hula hoop challenges, the school lunch crusades, the endless parade of abstract empowerment started to look less like leadership and more like Pinterest activism with a global spotlight, while the media applauded her every blink like it was a diplomatic breakthrough. Megyn saw it for what it was: highly produced, low-risk branding. Michelle didn't need to take political positions. She just needed to smile while handing out kale chips and drop the occasional humble brag about balancing motherhood with multi-million-dollar Netflix deals. Her soundbites were treated like scripture, even when they boiled down to drink water and be yourself. To Kelly, that wasn't wisdom, it was aestheticized fluff, and it worked. Because in an era where charisma counts more than competence, Michelle became bulletproof. But Megyn came armed with the one thing the brand couldn't spin: the inconvenient truth that being adored doesn't mean you've actually done something.
No, I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything. Michelle Obama's still at it.
Still at it.
And in this particular soundbite, she's got thoughts on relationships. Listen here.
Relationships are long, and there are also ebbs and flows, right? So I think sometimes people who date don't realize that, in long-term relationships, you're gonna have deep dips, and you're gonna have
a bad year.
You're gonna have I tell people, and folks think that this is harsh. It's like you're gonna have a bad decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been married to my husband for 30 plus years. I mean, the truth is, if you add it all up, even the year if the odds were you're going to be married to your partner for 50 years, and 10 of those years could be bad.
When Michelle took to the mic to lament how unfair the admissions game is for kids like her, those without private coaches or Ivy League lineage, Megyn saw the irony flashing in neon. This is a woman whose daughters now are the privilege pipeline, whose family summered in Martha's Vineyard while lecturing working-class parents about inequality. Michelle's defense: that the playing field isn't level. Megyn's reply: tell me something I don't know, and by the way, I didn't have any of that either. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a direct challenge to Michelle's status as the self-appointed spokeswoman of underdogs. To Megyn, the idea that Michelle Obama speaks for the overlooked was laughable. She doesn't sit beside them. She sits on panels, podcasts, and Netflix boardrooms, cashing in on the illusion of proximity. Her entire message hinges on the idea that she could be just like you if she weren't so incredibly polished, wealthy, and insulated. Kelly pointed out the obvious. Real adversity isn't wearing designer sneakers while reminiscing about your struggle from a multi-million-dollar stage. And when Michelle starts invoking systemic barriers while simultaneously benefiting from every elite institution in America, that's not activism, that's marketing with a guilt trip. Michelle Obama went viral again, but not for policy or purpose. This time it was for confessing on a podcast that in a long-term relationship, you might have a bad year, even a bad decade. A decade, 10 years. That's not a rough patch. That's a lifestyle. Megyn didn't need to dig deep to see what was really going on. Michelle wasn't offering relationship advice. She was airing out decades of personal frustration and wrapping it in self-help packaging. To Megyn, this wasn't vulnerability. It was a PR strategy disguised as therapy. Maybe you just married the wrong guy, she said, not missing a beat, because while Michelle frames it as wisdom gained through experience, it lands more like regret softened by a motivational tone. And this wasn't an isolated moment. It was the third time in as many interviews that Michelle subtly jabbed at Barack, painting him less as a partner and more as a political inconvenience she tolerated for the good of the brand. For Megyn, the message was clear. Michelle's grievances aren't private, they're monetized. And nothing says relatable like charging $150 a ticket to hear how miserable it is to be married to the former president of the United States. Michelle Obama has long played the role of the reluctant public figure, the woman who never wanted fame, never liked politics, and only stayed in the spotlight out of duty. But Megyn Kelly's not buying the act, and frankly, neither is anyone who's been paying attention. For someone who claims she hated the political limelight, Michelle has a suspicious habit of showing up everywhere cameras roll and crowds gather. From Vogue covers to stadium-sized book tours, from Netflix deals to TED Talk-level podcasts, this isn't someone quietly retreating from public life. It's someone who's turned the spotlight into a business model. And when she says, "I don't miss politics," while simultaneously giving political commentary on global stages, the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Megyn doesn't see humility. She sees the oldest trick in the branding book. Pretend you're not interested until the crowd begs you to run. And it's working. Every time Michelle says she won't run for office, the speculation only intensifies. The ambiguity isn't accidental. It's a carefully orchestrated dance, just enough to stay relevant, just vague enough to avoid commitment. Megyn calls it what it is: strategic coyness, dressed up as modesty, sold to the public as authenticity. Most former First Ladies write a memoir. Michelle Obama launched a full-blown cinematic universe. Her post-White House glow-up wasn't just a reinvention, it was a corporate expansion. Stadium tours, docuseries, curated Spotify playlists, and a production company churning out empowerment like it's a subscription box. This isn't a retirement, it's an empire. And Megyn Kelly's jaw isn't on the floor because of admiration. It's from the sheer audacity. The authentic Michelle brand now includes $50 throw pillows with slogans like "Go High," keynote speeches about living out loud, and deeply edited interviews where she says everything and nothing at once. What's missing? Results. Tangible impact. A policy, a program, anything beyond photo ops and polished platitudes. Megyn's critique isn't just about Michelle's fame. It's about the media's refusal to question why someone with so little public accountability is treated like a modern-day oracle. The applause comes on cue, not from content. And while Michelle's words are carefully laminated in self-help sparkle, they rarely challenge, rarely risk, and rarely lead. She's not pushing boundaries. She's surfing them. And in a political landscape that needs courage, Michelle's brand has become the safest product on the shelf. In the end, it's not personal, it's structural. Michelle Obama isn't just a public figure, she's a symbol of how charisma can replace contribution, and how questioning that symbol has become taboo. Every magazine cover canonized her, every puff piece praised her for being present, even her biceps became a cultural movement, as if triceps could pass legislation. But Megyn Kelly refuses to clap on command. She's not here to tear Michelle down for being likable. She's here to challenge the worship of someone whose legacy is more photo book than public service. Michelle's greatest political act was making politics look like wellness branding. But there's a limit to how far good posture and vague wisdom can take a country. For Megyn, the danger isn't in Michelle's popularity, it's in the silence that surrounds it. Because every time a real question is deflected with a quote about kindness, every time criticism is dismissed as disrespect, and every time glitter is mistaken for gold, the pedestal rises. And Megyn? She's just pulling back the curtain. Not out of spite, but out of principle. Because while Michelle's team wraps her in the velvet rope of legacy, Megyn's already walked past it, mic in hand, ready to ask what no one else will.